How's it going? I'm Tobin, back in my shave den for episode 14 in my razor review series, the B1 Lancer from Ariana and Evans. I've had this for a month or more now, got 20 or more shaves in with it. I've been using it a lot. I've used it in one review video. If you want to see me shaving with it, there'll be a link to that in the description. Full disclosure right up front, I did not pay for this razor. The links in the description to Ariana and Evans are affiliate links. If you use that link to make a purchase, I will receive a 10% commission. With the introduction out of the way, the legal beagle stuff, let's get into this using the same format as I've used in the previous 13 episodes. If you want to see a breakdown of that, it's done in episode 1 and a little bit in episode 2. We're going to start off taking a look at the efficiency score and then move our way down to the value with a couple of steps along the way. The blade gap on this razor is 0.060 of an inch, right up there in millimeters. The exposure is positive, and like I always explain, or I often explain in these videos, there's three things that make a razor efficient. You got the blade gap, the blade exposure, how far the blade sticks out, how much of it is actually exposed from the razor head itself, and then the angle, gap, exposure, angle. So looking at the blade gap is on the larger side compared to most modern razors. A couple examples up there, some razors you might be familiar with and that are popular on the market. And then the exposure is positive, and that just means that you will notice a blade feel when you're shaving with the razor. I'm going to give this out of 10, 10 being the most efficient razor I've ever used, 1 being the mildest, 5 being average. I'm going to give this a score between 6.5 to 7. I'm leaning more towards a 7, but at the same time, I kind of feel like 7's a little too much, but I feel like 6 isn't quite enough. This is an above medium efficient razor. I absolutely love using it. I really, really do. Next, we're going to take a look at the Symmetry Score, the knurling, and the knurling is how grippy the handle is. The little nubs or not nubs that make up what we call the knurling, the grip of the handle. The blade tabs, whether or not the blade sticks out from the head, and then the weight and balance of the razor. How balanced is the razor in the hand when you're using it, not when you're playing with it to actually balance it. The balance is perfect. It's a nice little, what we'd call a bulldog style handle, meaning that it's on the shorter side. And it's kind of got that beefy, short bulldog kind of look to it. So weight and balance is perfect. It's perfectly balanced. It really is. You want the balance to be right about where you're going to hold it with your fingers up here. And that is where the razor... I don't have very steady hands. That's why I'm not a mechanic or a surgeon. I'm a truck driver, and I got that big steering wheel. Weight and balance. It's good. It's good. It's good. It's good stuff, Maynard. The knurling. The knurling isn't the grippiest. This is an aluminum handle, but at the same time, I don't feel like it's slippery at all. But it's not grippy either. It's just kind of, when it comes to the knurling, a middle of the road type of grip feel, if you will. Blade tabs, whether or not they stick out, they do not stick out. In fact, when I grip it like this, there's a blade in it now. When I grip it like this, I cannot feel the blades at all, the tabs at all. For a Symmetry Score, I'm going to give it a score of 7, 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, 5 being average. Next, we'll look at the tolerance score, the blade alignment, and whether or not there's chatter, and if so, how much. The blade alignment is pretty amazing. When I first received this razor, you have this spring action that opens the head, and I actually thought that the blade alignment might be on the lower side, that it may not be that easy to align. I've seen a lot of twist to open, some people call them barn doors. There's a lot of different names, butterfly doors for this type of door that opens up. This isn't a twist open, it's a pushed open. We'll talk about that more in just a second. But when I first received it, I'm like, man, this might be a little tricky to align. And one thing that's super cool is that I can sit here and like bounce it to where I actually can Hear that? Got my microphone. I'm bouncing it, and then like I look at it to see how aligned the blade is. And almost always, like I like playing with the razor, especially when I'm doing these reviews. Is one of the things I love about this hobby. It kind of like meets my OCD needs. And it's remarkable. It's insane how well this blade aligns inside this razor, even when you're going to town on it. So I'm really, really impressed with that. Now, chatter, a couple of times I thought I noticed a little bit of chatter. Other times I'm like, no, there's no chatter at all. You may notice a little bit of chatter. And what I mean by chatter is just that it's not perfectly clamped in there to where there's just a little bit of movement. But I really believe that for the most part, you're not going to notice any chatter at all. I question whether or not I notice any chatter, but that's just something to be aware of if you're going to make this purchase. That if you're sensitive to chatter, you might notice it. But I really think that most guys are never going to notice it. Because I really never noticed it until I really tried to notice it. And then I think it's kind of like psyching myself out. Don't psych yourself out. That's the lesson for today. So for a tolerance score, I'm going to give it a 9 because I feel like, especially when it comes to, barnyard doors, butterfly doors, it doesn't get any better than this when it comes to this style of mechanism. I'm going to give it a 9 for a tolerance score. Next, that brings us down into durability and construction materials, what I call the permanence score. Durability, I think it's going to last a lifetime, maybe even 2 lifetimes. The spring is made out of brass and it's rated for 25,000 uses. If you're like me and you own a bajillion razors, 25,000 uses might as well be 10,000 lifetimes. Unless you're like me and you play with it. Don't lie. So the brass spring, 25,000 is rated for 25,000 uses. And you're probably going to get more than that out of it. But even if you only got 15,000, right? Who's going to use the razor that many times? The head is Zamac, known as a zinc alloy, and then the handle is aluminum. I think with a little TLC, this thing's going to last forever. Put it away dry, don't drop it, that kind of thing. Dropping razors changes the ball game, but I really think that, if you drop it, you might have a problem with the Zamac head if you drop it too many times, but I don't see any problems with the durability or construction material of this razor. In fact, I'm impressed by it, just because like what I already mentioned above with the tolerances and whatnot. I'm super, super impressed with this razor. There's been other razors in modern years that have been made with these butterfly style doors that I'm not impressed with. The Rockwell T2, that's a razor that has the butterfly doors. I'm not impressed with that razor. I own it and I'm not impressed with it. In fact, I haven't been impressed with any of Rockwell's butterfly doors. Anywho, so for a permanent score, I'm going to give it a solid 8.5. Solid 8.5. Moves us down into friendliness to new wet shavers. Now, the only reservation I would have with this razor is that it is on the efficient side of things. So as long as a first-time wet shaving, a first-time double-edge razor user is aware that this is going to be on the aggressive side, I would recommend it to that person if they had that knowledge, because I do recommend that a new wet shaver, spend somewhere between $30 to $50 on their first razor or even their second or third, right? Too often I see new wet shavers dive down the rabbit hole and immediately, they're like, oh, I got to spend $200 on a razor to get a good shave. I got to spend $1,000 on a razor to get a good shave. No, put the Kool-Aid down. No, you do not. $50 is what this sells for. And so because of that price, I think it's perfect for a new wet shaver. The only thing that a new wet shaver would need to be mindful of is that it is on the efficient side and to just go easy with it, right? So for friendliness to new wet shavers, I'm going to give it a 7. And that's only because of how efficient it is. Not the most efficient razor ever, but it is on the more efficient side. Value. So the razor I have is what's known as the B1 Sideline. Limited quantities. There's only a handful left. It's $25, $24.99. Regular price for the B1 razor, this is named after a bomber, the B1 Lancer right there. That's where this razor gets its name. At $25, this razor is a steal. Like if I could get it a 12 or a 15, I would. But even at $49.99, if you buy the regular one, and the only reason why this is marked down, if you're lucky enough to get one, is because the spring it's a little harder to open than what Peter Charkalis, the artisan at Ariana and Evans, wanted it to be. That's the only reason why it's knocked down. I had my wife and our daughter, Emily, play with it, and I asked them, how hard is it for you, a lady, to press this down? And neither one of them had any problems with it, and they said, that being that you would only use it once or twice, because you open it to put the blade in, and then you should take the blade out when you're done. Using it twice in a day would be no issue for them, and they felt like it wasn't really that hard to open. So if you don't have a lot of strength in your hands, I wouldn't recommend the B1 sidelined if there is any left by the time you see this. I want to buy a regular one just to see how much easier it is, and I do plan on doing that. I have an order coming now from Ariana and Evans that I purchased 3 different soap sets, and I can't wait for them to get here. I'm super excited. So even at $49.99, I'm going to give it a 10 all day long. This is one hell of a deal at $50. It is a beautiful, badass looking razor. I just, with that brass ring down here, this matte black bulldog look, you got the chomping action. It's a kick-ass razor. It really is. Pardon my English, but I love this razor, and it's not because I didn't pay for it, and it's not because you're going to purchase it and I'm going to make money off of it. I genuinely like it, and it's a damn good shaver. I think you can do, most guys would be able to get away with a 2-pass and have a damn fine shave, and that if you want to chase a BBS, which I don't recommend, that it's totally achievable with this razor. It's Little Big Things, my friends. And in this series, it is always value. I feel like this razor is one hell of a value, and that if I spent $60 or $70 on it, I would still feel that way. I would think that at $50, this razor is a steal. And at $24.99, he might as well be giving it away, because me and my hands, I have no problem opening this razor at all. Zero, zilch, nada, nine, none, el zippo. Take care, guys, and I'll see you next time.